Good evening. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thursday. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much to each and everyone that is joining, that is about to join us. We're taking a deep breath because yes, the year is getting to its peak end. For a lot of people, nearing December means that deep breath to say, yes, we've made it. And one of the critical conversations we thought would be so beautiful, and our young professionals, young graduates, amazing young people that are thriving and doing great things have said to us, listen, we want to partner and collaborate with brands. So let's have a semi-closing, I'm going to just say that, semi-closing conversation about meaningful partnerships with brands as young people. So I'm so excited. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good day, good afternoon. I hope you had a beautiful one. And if you didn't, this is your opportunity to have a beautiful evening with us. It is our date, beautiful date night. And you know what? I get to have the best view and conversations with you because of the amazing guests that usually join me. And of course, today I have Lesego. What do they say? Boo, 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 boo.
I was on cue. I was on cue.
On point, on point. So, Lesego, let's get the one thing out of the way. You know, I've always been your biggest fan. So I'm gonna tell everyone when I met you, I was like, you know what? Let's get this part out of the way. Listen, I love you. You're so great. I had my fan moment, and I was just like, this is the girl, this is the brand, this is the
Oh,
one.
pressure, pressure, pressure.
So now I have you on WhatsApp. You know how life is so wonderful. Now
Yeah.
I've got access to this amazing brand. So usually on our Thursday dates, I allow my wonderful guests to introduce themselves. So Lesego, thank you for joining us. Please tell us who you are, what you're about, how's life been, anything that you would like to share with us.
My goodness. Sis Linda, that's such an intro. I'm just kind of like, I think I still remember that day. And even when you spoke to me, I'm like, "Where's Sis Linda? Wait, I'm normal. I'm a person." But welcome to to your viewers. Thank you for having me. It's always great to share platform with amazing people. And Sis Linda, you doing the Lord's work on LinkedIn with your lives. I feel like we're always tuning in and you're always bringing top tier guests. So hope, I hope I can, at least attempt to be at the caliber of guests. So if people don't know me, I am Lesego Rankou. I'm a qualified chartered accountant. I also like to say I'm a speaker, digital content creator, amongst other things. I also am a founder of an organization. I want to call it a social enterprise called Learning, Growth, and Contribution. And I have co-adopted a founding company called Ulwazi Olubanzi Academy. So I'm head of operations for that company as well. And yeah, I'm just a girl that loves Jesus, that's spreading light on social media, that is finding herself in spaces and brands and collaborations. So this is also very new to me. I think what people fail to understand is they always think that your journey when you are doing these things is very strategic and organized. But for me, I think I stumbled into like where I am in terms of how active I've been on social media. If I look back at my LinkedIn, I used to post a lot of, I call them lessons of the week on Thursdays, actually. And I'll just like put scripts and take my Bible teachings and kind of make it professional and package it in such a way that it's going to encourage people. But yeah, so far I'm in a content space. I'm glad that the year is coming to an end. It's been a very challenging year, mostly because of I feel like I've been changing my career or I've been trying to understand how I'd like to lead my career. And like I said, a lot of people, when they do meet me, they meet me like from a LinkedIn profile. But before that, I was in audit and I thought that's where my life is going to be. But I think life happens to the best of us. And I just find myself, like, again, spreading love on social media.
Social media is your thing. It's now your thing.
I love it
And
so much. I think it's the engagement, if anything, and you get to meet so many different people that you wouldn't meet on a day to day. So I think for me, this is where my heart is.
and I mean, just stick to that, the opportunity that it comes with, before
Mm,
we get into the collaborations and partnerships, just,
yeah.
brand, like what does brand mean to you? What does a brand or branding mean to you?
Sure. That is such a good question because when I hosted my first event, and I want to say as the brand, so remember I mentioned that I'm a founder of a social enterprise called Learning, Growth, and Contribution. So the premise of that was actually what I used to do on my YouTube. So I used to share my CASA journey, and I used to give people a lens through my life as to how I qualified to be a CASA and my failures and all of that stuff, and give tips, and I called it Learning, Growth, and Contribution. And then this year, I had this amazing idea to take it offline, um, and then like try to host an event where what I do on my socials is what I do in person. So, funny enough, when I was actually planning that for the first time, I had to define what is a brand, because I remember even the lady that was helping me plan it out, and she's actually a trainee trailblazer. I'm a shout her out, Ketty Wenene. Whoop, 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 whoop. Actually is an event planner. And when I had to define my brand, it was very challenging because you always think a brand is like a face, or you think it's a logo, or you think it's like when you see someone, you should have a story. But I've come to understand that a brand also represents like your values, what you believe in. So when people see you, they see something, they see your value proposition. So even for me, that I never understood how people actually viewed me on social media. So for me, like I said, I did it because I wanted to spread love. But now that I had to create a workshop and identify my brand, what do I want LGC to represent? Who is the targeted audience? Tailoring this value proposition is what I found most fascinating and most interesting. And I think branding is all about that, seeing the finished product, to say if you see Lesego, you know what Lesego is about, you know what LGC is about, you know what it represents. You can understand her mission, her vision. You can already tell when you work with her what you're going to expect or what you're going to get. So for me, branding is about capturing that story through one thing. So when people see me, I want them to be able to have a story behind what they see when they look at me. Same thing with LGC. When they look at it, they know it's for aspiring CAs. They know I do workshops. They know I'm trying to equip people, navigate corporate, and try to be better professionals. So I think for me, I had to really hone into that word. As I'm saying, it's an interesting question because I can confidently say branding is about storytelling. It's about creating this value that you would like people to receive you for.
And keep coming back, right?
Keep
Using
coming.
different tools. People come back because of the brand. The brand creates that
Mm,
connection, that
100.
loyalty, that I want to be part of this. So we
Yeah.
had a question that said, why is it so important, right?
Mm,
Because here everything is moving so fast. There's so much choice out there
mm,
for young people. There's so many opportunities as well. Us ourselves, we can be those brands, but in order to elevate, in order to get to a point where you can say, listen, I am now thriving, I'm now doing well, I've now peaked in terms of my purpose, it's important to create those partnerships for your career growth and brand elevation. So, what are the critical things that make this important in terms of your experience?
Yeah, I think for me, it's defining where it is that you'd like to go, right? So I think when I mentioned that I was never strategic in the very beginning, I had to
Yeah.
also start reassessing and asking myself, what do I want my career to represent? And what would I like to be known for? Because I feel like even as a young professional, when you're coming in, you don't necessarily have a reputation or an identity. You might
Mm.
have it in the context of your team or your client or where you are working, but for now, social media is also allowing us to be more exposed, and we realize there's external opportunities. So there's that tension of am I the real person in the office with my team, or do I want to sell another narrative when I maybe attack social media or I present myself on social media? So I think what influences that decision is asking yourself, where am I going the next 2, 3 years? Like for me, like I said, this first 7 months of working with brand and partnering, I had to ask myself, what is the end goal? And why am I even engaging in this, right? And I realized that even with LGC, my main mission was to give people access to information and basically just show people that you don't need to let a background define where you are, even if you had to fail, or even if you have to come from humble beginnings or come from a background where you don't understand certain things. I wanted them to know that you can create something that you foresee. And if you understand what opportunities it's going to offer you, you need to start defining, okay, brand collaborations, myself, who am I? If I want to go out and put myself out, if I'm working with, for example, Sis Linda, or I'm working with Saika, for example, why am I working with Saika? Do we have shared values? Do I see the synergies? Do I see the benefit of associating and affiliating myself with this? Because what we don't understand is that as professionals, as much as we stress character, when people
Mm,
see us for the first time, they don't know our character, unfortunately, they know our reputation. And I feel like for the most part, we spend a lot of time trying to prove our character to people, whereas your character must flow out into your reputation as well, right? You want to tell a consistent story. So that's what I'm saying. People shouldn't feel like they have to behave a certain type of way in a team and then on social media they become someone else or something that they're not. It's about that consistency and redefining and saying, okay, in the next 2 years, 3 years, I would really like to be a trailblazer for
yeah.
CAs, right? What I'm doing, for example, is very uncommon. I get a lot of people asking me, "You're a CA. Why are you busy on social media? Don't you have other things to
Time
do?"
on your hands.
And then I'm like, "No, it's not about that. I think it's about the messaging. It's about
Mm,
saying, I know why I didn't want to become a CSA. It had nothing to do with my brains. It had everything to do with the fact that I didn't know much about the journey. I didn't know any CAs. Nobody was picking up a phone and giving up information and saying it's a 7 year life journey minimum, and these are all the things. So that's why I do it, right? And again, let me just introduce the fact that your why holds weight. I don't think even with brand collaborations and doing all of those things, you shouldn't do it just to be seen. It's about having a deeper sense of why and saying, okay, what is the mission behind why I would also like to collaborate or be exposed or associate myself with certain things? Because in some cases, it might become redundant.
mm.
Some people might see you are being disingenuous or you being inauthentic and you just trying too hard, because you can only put up a front for so long, right? And then it starts seeping out, and then your story is not making sense. So I think it's very important that people understand their why, where it is they'd like to go, that level of consistency, and say, do we have shared values if I say I want to collaborate with a certain brand or certain partnership?
So, funny enough, there was a question that I had this afternoon where a young person was saying, "I hear you on the defining my, why, like having a big why. Like, how do I even get to a point where I have a why?" And besides referencing the book that we all know by Simon Sinek, I was just like, you know, there's a lot of reflection you need to do,
Yep.
introspection. You need to look around you. You need to see, is there a problem that you need to solve? Is there something that you need to do differently within your family and your community? Sometimes that's where your why then kicks in, because everything could be wonderful for you and you don't have a deep why to even get to that point. I don't know if you would have had a different response to that. How do you get to a why? Because there's honestly young people who are just like, I'm here, I exist, and we're busy saying, but you must exist for more, and they're like, but what is that? What does that look like?
I co-sign everything, Sis Linda. I think young people, and I don't know if it's lived experience or not having exposure, right? That you have to spend enough time with yourself and introspect, right? And I say this as somebody that even for me, I spend a lot of my time asking myself why I'm doing certain things, right? And if I don't have a good enough or solid reason, I just don't do it. And I think the confidence and trust comes with spending time with yourself. And a lot of times we seek validation from other people, and we are very impressionable in the social media age. We want to do what everybody else is doing because we think it's something
Mm,
else, but the reality is it might be something else, you know. So I think if you don't spend enough time asking yourself, Lesego, who are you? Why do you do the things that you do? And you interrogate yourself and you are transparent with yourself. And for me, the exercise helps in that I know no one is looking. So if there's ever a time to be genuinely honest with yourself, is when you are with yourself, you know, so that you can question. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with interrogating yourself and realize, there's a little bit of ego attached to why I want to be seen, you know.
mm,
At least you can deal with it. You know, you can identify and deal with it and say, okay, how do I purify that concept, right? How do I purify there's a pride, an ego, a need for validation? Because you can't fix what you cannot name, unfortunately. And even if you had to pretend like it doesn't exist, you're going to
yeah.
get very frustrated. You're going to compromise and you're going to find yourself dissatisfied, even though you're doing the things that you thought would make you happy. So I think that's why I'm saying I co-sign everything in the sense of it's about self-introspection and sitting down and saying what is important to me and why, you know. And
Mm,
young people wait until like later. You want I want to say to discover purpose only as a result of circumstance.
yeah.
But I don't think you have to wait that long because some circumstances really bruise us, you know, and they
Mm,
shift our purity or how we thought about ourselves. So if nothing has happened in your life and you have the luxury of sitting with yourself and getting to know yourself, take yourself on a date, you know, find
yeah.
out what makes you tick, find out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, where you would like to be, uh, have vision. This is one thing that I'm also learning to do for myself because for the longest time, I let coincidences and circumstances lead the narrative of my life instead of casting vision for myself and saying, actually, where do I see myself? And why do I see myself there? And I found myself making changes in my life because I realized the narrative that I was following was because I saw someone or I heard something or I thought it would be nice. But when I took time to say, what does Lesego want and what would make her happy? Things started changing and I started aligning myself with things that were more accustomed to who I am.
Oh man. On the
Mhm.
tip of things that are accustomed to who I am, who you are, a very important question is choosing right, choosing the right people to partner with. What's the process? What does that process look like for a young person who is not getting approached and one that is getting approached? What should that look like in terms of making the right choice? Because a brand is a person, a brand is a company, a
Mhm.
brand is a product that we like and a product that we don't like that is out there. So when we then make that choice, what are the things that as a young person one should take into consideration?
I'm going to answer for two parties, one that brands approach and the one that you approach the brands, because I find myself having lived both. So the
Yeah.
first one is when brands approach you or people want to work with you. That's where that self introspection actually matters. And you had to understand self before you can actually assess the brand, why they want to work with you. Because let's say, for example, social media makes us feel overly exposed, right? And some people would want to just work with you because of proximity or because of association. Then you have to ask yourself, why? Why would I want to work with them, right? Does it make sense for me? Does it make sense for where I'm going? Because again, that conversation of reputation actually does matter. So you don't want to be in a position where you are associated with the brand and then jiggy jiggy a couple of months, years later, you look back and you regret it. You're like, why did I even get to that point, right? Because you didn't spend enough time interrogating. So for me, when people were approaching me, especially this year, I wouldn't respond immediately. I would
Mm.
stop and think about, why am I doing this and how would it benefit me? So let's say, for example, when I spoke on radio, it was about the CSA designation and giving people access to information. What does LGC do? LGC gives access to information to CASAs. Do I need to take the radio interview? Of course, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, there's certain photographers that would reach out and say, "Oh, we see you doing well. Would you want to do a photo shoot for free?" First of all, I don't know the photographer. I know my photographer. So even though it's a kind gesture, do I really need that level? I don't need it right now
Mm.
because I have my own photographer that's doing it. So just because something is for free or just because people approach you, it doesn't mean you have to accept everything, right? And
Yeah.
again, that comes from that conversation that you're going to have with self and say, why am I doing certain things? On the person that is seeking brands, this is research. So for me, of note, I've been trying to position myself and say, I want to work with certain brands for certain reasons because I think they would help me with scaling my business. For example, now that I'm head of operations for Uluazi, I understand that for me, the educational space is such a big thing. So when I'm seeking brands or I'm seeking people to work with, I have that at the back of my mind. That is the story that's leading my narrative or leading my partnerships or leading the people that I want to work with, right? I'm not doing it for any other reason, right? And then I think some people, when they approach brands, visibility is can be a trap. I'm not saying is a trap, I'm saying can be a trap. Because again, we are so consumed by numbers and following and being like seen, and I understand because the world is social media. And every time people say, "Oh, I don't get the social media thing," but in all honesty, people spend a lot of their time here, and we've kind of made it normal to be visible to everyone, So if you
Mm.
find yourself chasing a brand because it's going to lead to visibility, the follow-up question is, why do you need that visibility, and for who? What is it going to benefit you, because the thing is, being relevant is like a hamster wheel. If you try to keep up with being relevant, that's where you're going to introduce compromise and introduce things that you wouldn't necessarily do because you want to be relevant, you want to be seen, you want that visibility. So I honestly think if you are a person seeking a brand, again, it starts with your why. Sis Linda, you there?
I think our connection lapsed there for a second.
Back. I can hear you now.
Yeah, back. Yeah, we dipped a bit there.
But did you
So
hear
you were
me?
saying the question ask yourself. You were just on the question part.
The sound is just a little bit bad. I hear you. You just lagging a little bit. I don't know if the people can let us know if there's connection issues.
Is I got a little bit, just a small break in between,
Okay.
but I think we're good.
Are we good?
Yeah,
Okay, happy. I think
we're
I
good
lost
on
you.
my side.
Yeah, there's just a bit of a lag.
Okay. Continue on the question that one should ask themselves as they reach out to the brands. I think you were on that one.
Yes. So I don't know if they heard me, but I was saying, especially when you are the one seeking the brand, it's very important that you do it with intentionality and understanding why you would be seeking the brand. So the example that I gave is with Ulwazi, for example, that for me, because I'm entering the educational space, I'm not entirely familiar. I know the high level of it, but in terms of how to navigate that space, how to get corporates and businesses to partner with us and to sponsor children. That's still something that I have yet to understand. So, of course, um, that is very intentional. So that's what I'm saying, especially when you are the one seeking the brands, your intention is the one that's going to lead the narrative. When brands
Yeah.
are approaching you, it is your values. It is, what does Lesego want to be known for? And does Lesego want to partner with these people? And what is the reason for it? So, both ways, your intentionality, your values, your why, are very, very important.
Awesome, awesome. So, thank you so much for letting us know that the sound was not like a bit. So just like a minute. Uh,
Um, Maybe just check with the crowd. I don't know if they can hear me, because
Nelly
I'm
says we've.
I think when I'm seeing you, you're frozen, and then there's a lag in speech, so I'm not sure.
Sure. Tackle this one for us because you touched a lot on authenticity, right? When you were starting the conversation on who you are and just how you've been approaching your brand inside to say, why is it so important that brands actually attach to people that?
Sis Linda, just say that last part again. I missed that last part.
Just why is it so important that brands are drawing nearer and nearer to people that are so authentic with their brands as well?
Yeah, I think it's because it flows naturally when you're authentic, and it leads to a deeper connection with people, you know. And I think what people don't realize is that when we're being uniquely ourselves, and when we are not selling an image or we are not selling a narrative, people feel like they can relate. People feel like you are the girl next door, or you are approachable, you know. And I think what brands are trying to do now is, in the past, traditional media, you would script something, right? And when we look at the success of social media, you get those people that are authentically themselves, and they are dancing or they are doing whatever they're doing, but they're being themselves. And that's why people love them. So I think for brands, they've also understood that they need to find people where they don't need to overly script the narrative. They can partner with somebody that's authentic, present to them something that is aligned with what they would like to communicate, and you bring your flair, you bring your own uniqueness to the pitch or whatever the case may be. But I honestly believe it's a matter of connection, and really wanting the audience to engage, and wanting the audience to be able to connect with whatever the brand is trying to do. So I think for me, like, the new era is that authenticity is the selling point. You know, the more authentic you are, the better. What I think people get wrong is the definition of authenticity. So sometimes, um, I don't know if Sis Linda can hear me. I think
I think I jumped in while you were speaking. I want to say now you're authentic, right? Now all the brands are. We were speaking about some of those challenges, some of the conflicts of interest and conflict of and employment, and we just juggled with a lot as we we're advising some of the young people in our space. Challenges. It's never smooth sailing. Maybe you can just mention some of those that we touched or not. What they may experience.
okay, I think I got your question. But I think the one thing is, when people work with multiple brands, it's important to, there's one question that I always ask myself, right? Is, are they competitors, right? I think
Yeah.
maybe, let's say, because I'm a CASA and you think of the CPC, those fundamental principles, they don't just go away, right? You need to be somebody that's objective, somebody that has integrity, somebody that can behave professionally, right? So, for example, I have like a checklist of questions when I want to work with brands, or I feel like I need to assess whether this move is making sense or not. So, number one, the brands that I work with, are they competitors? If they are competitors, it's an easy no.
Mm.
Which brand holds more weight, right? So let's say I have a long-standing relationship with the brand, and then somebody approaches me and then they said, "Do you want to work with us?" If I really value that initial brand and they are competitors, I would stay with my loyalty. I will stick to that initial person that I worked with because they are the ones that obviously approached me first, right? The other thing is, when you're working with brands, is asking yourself the question, is it creating a conflict of interest, right? Because I find that trainees also get trigger happy. And I want to say trigger happy because, again, you want to take every opportunity because it makes sense and because it's going to benefit you. And again, the topic of visibility, it's going to expose you, it's going to put you in the right room, it's going to lead to networks, it's going to lead to something self. And this is where you need to tread very carefully because now you're on the border of being selfish because you really want to work with everyone. But if there is a conflict of interest that you find yourself in, especially when you're trying to work with brands, just don't do it. Again, reputation matters, especially in the professional space, right? And funny enough, the CSA stream, and I want to
Yeah.
say professionals in general, it's a small community. We always think that we're a lot, and then you go to networking events and then somebody like, "I know you," you know and you finally
Same
get
people, same faces.
exactly. And you finally get to see how small our community is, and also how people really take note if you are being impactful or making moves. So if you are feeling like there's a sense of conflict of interest, I wouldn't even entertain that, right? And I think that's what I'm saying. As a person, do you hold yourself to a high ethical regard? Like, does the check matter more than your reputation? Does the check matter more than your character? Does visibility matter more than how people view you or work with you? Because again, tomorrow, if you are just rubbing people the wrong way, it's a small community. In a couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks, you might meet those people. So you also don't want to upset the the territory that you're operating in.
And it's all a huge ecosystem, right? That
Yep.
we have to take into consideration. So, in terms of the red flags, I know you mentioned one. What have been your experiences, with working or partnering with brands?
So I think I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had any red flags. And I say that humbly because I think of the type of content that I put out, right? So I remember when I was working with this one brand, they had mentioned that, Lesego, the thing is, you are so um, for your faith on social media, right? And you are not selling a life that you're not living. So
Mm.
it's very easy for people to find you relatable, right? Some people, let's say, for example, if you are selling a product, right, or you are selling certain services and you really want to bump up sales, let's stick to the product situation, and you start selling something that might compromise who you are, then of course some of them might appear as red flags. Fortunately enough for me, the only brands that have approached me are the ones that are in the professional space, the ones that really want to continue the work that I've started or partner with the work that I'm doing, right? So I've never gotten to a point where I'm having to do a face off and see, okay, this one, I feel like it's going to make me, lose my plot or lose my brand or like taint it a little bit. And I honestly believe that is just purely trying to be consistent in what I'm producing. So also my selling points are very consistent. So it's also less likely that red flags would approach me, right? Because I'm not selling an inconsistent story. If, let's say, for example, one month I'm doing something, the next month I'm doing something, the other month I'm doing something, it creates a lot of things. And that's where all specs of people are going to approach you, good or bad, pure or impure. everyone is just going to think they can have a piece of you. So I think I've been lucky enough because of the consistency that only professional brands that didn't raise any red flags have approached me.
So I wanted to ask you about rejection. You know, when we speak about just the approach, and then something in me was like, you know what? Um, we put ourselves out there quite a lot, and with social media, there is so much, the right word is not coming right now, but the backlash sometimes in us being authentic, comes via the DMs, it comes via the emails, and there is rejection. How does one deal with that? Just from your experience, some of the advice you would be able to give just on rejection in working with brands, because also lack of feedback or no feedback is also being rejected. uh,
Yeah.
Not hearing back after you've done work and no one is saying, oh, you did great, is also a form of or feeling that you can have of, hey, I'm being rejected here, just for you to encourage someone who's probably in that space right now.
Man, if people only knew, I was so tempted to do like a yearly review of all my rejections. I think I've had more rejections this year than being accepted. And I think that's what people don't see or don't realize, that behind that one speaking engagement or that one collaboration, there is at least, there is like a proper solidified list of rejections where I even thought to myself, is there something wrong with me? Like, in my mind, you start questioning, because also
Mm.
what rejection does, it makes you question your value. It makes you question, like, am I good enough? Should I even be in this space? I remember my biggest rejection came very recently, where I had applied for something that I really, really wanted. Like, I think I was checking my emails every 2 seconds just to check this thing needs to come. I'm just like, I really want this thing.
Yeah.
And I was busy with something else and I was not expecting it. And then it just came, regret notification, you know? And
Oh.
I was so bruised, Sis Linda. And I think that's one of many, and that's why I'm saying you develop a sense of grit. And if you don't also practice gratitude, it would be so much easier
Mm.
to weigh these rejections on your person. And I'm not saying this as somebody that's really trying to sell a very like perfect story. I honestly have gotten so many rejections. It's not even just brands, it's jobs, it's people going silent, it's people not responding back to
Yeah.
messages, people just leaving you hanging. And you sit there questioning and you ask yourself, like, the least you can do is acknowledge me. It's better to be rejected when somebody says rejected, but it still hurts, it's still painful. And even if you don't get that feedback, it hurts more, because you wonder, like, your mind can concoct the worst stories about you, about what those people think. So I've learned to learn how to manage rejection, because I don't think you really get over it. You just learn to manage it. You like, okay, maybe this was not for me, I'll try again next time. Or maybe this opportunity is redirection. It's about telling yourself a
Yeah.
different narrative and building your own.
That's like you didn't pray enough. Maybe I didn't pray enough for this.
I mean, that could also be a case. Sometimes I'm like, did I? Surely I prayed, I fasted for this. But it's challenging, and I think rejection is also a part of life. And I don't know if you ever get used to it, if I'm honest. I don't think people telling you you're not wanted, or maybe we don't want to work with you, or maybe next time, it's never something you get used to, and you just learn to manage it. And like I say, you encourage yourself, you speak life back into yourself. If I look back at this year alone, I had a lot of speaking engagements, but I also had a lot of missed out speaking engagements. And sometimes there's ones that I really wanted, There's other brands that I really, really wanted to work with, but unfortunately, it's not my time yet. And it's stuff like that where I say words like yet. It's not meant to be yet. We'll try again next year. And if next year doesn't work, then it's not next year yet, you know?
I love that. Yet. It hasn't
Mm,
yet. I haven't done it yet. Not that I can't do it, but I haven't done it yet. Lesego, I
mm,
know the connection is dribbling us a bit here and there, but I'm hearing that we are going strong. It's not long lags or drops in between. It
okay.
might just be the weather somewhere acting up on us. But
Mm,
I think what's important with everything that we've said is now the solution. Let's give our young people the solution, which is now, how do you do it, based off what you've seen? How do you position yourself based
mm,
on your experience? And yes, certain things you stumbled upon, same here. Certain things I was like, oh, and then the links happened, or it was
mm.
related to work. But how does one intentionally and unintentionally position themselves to
Sis Linda, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, no, I got your question. So, in terms of positioning yourself, I think the one thing that has really, really worked well for me and that I would like to encourage people to actually always do is to actually always be your best self, like show up in your best capacity. No speaking engagement was ever small for me, you know. No brand collaboration was ever small to me. Like everything that I did with my heart, you know, I did it with my fullest. I wanted people to know that like I honor them, I honor the recognition, I honor them wanting to work with me. So positioning yourself is also saying, even if I get that one gig must be your best gig in your life. You know, you must bring your A game, you must bring your everything to it. And before you know it, this gig recommends you to this gig, recommends you to this brand, recommends you to this brand. And that's why I'm like, the people that aren't very much sure about, okay, I really want to work with, for example, the professional body. How do I work with a professional body? The first question is, why do you want to work with a professional body? And what are you already doing? You know, for me, it was my YouTube.
Mm,
You know, it was the information was related to what my professional body is doing. So the collaboration made sense, right? So again, that strategic positioning also stems from you as a person outside you wanting to work with brands. What are you already doing? You know, I love so much the trainee trailblazers this year because they really demonstrated that as people, before they acknowledged other brands, they are doing things by themselves. They are doing things that create impact for themselves.
yeah.
And then they are aligning themselves. And then everything else is being attracted to that, right? So you have to first start off and say, what am I doing in my personal capacity, right? And then even when now I work with certain brands, you can't undermine anything. You can't take lightly anything. Like that's why I'm saying I think there was this other speaking engagement where there was very, very few people in that room. But I made sure that I spoke like at some stage, I'm like, guys, is somebody recording me? Like, surely like masses must hear me speak, you know? That's how much effort I was putting in because I really appreciated everyone in the room. I didn't want them to feel like, oh, just because it's a small crowd, it means that I speak less than or I don't, you know, bring my best self to it, right? So positioning is also saying, what am I doing in my personal capacity? And
Yeah.
even with the people that I work with, am I bringing my A game all the time? Like people must want to work with you again. Like for example, my partnerships with the professional body have been so solid because of every time I work with them, I make them want to work with me again because of how I show up, how I
Yeah.
perform, how I continuously keep like pushing the bar. Like even for me, I'm setting a bar, I'm breaking it. I'm setting a bar, I'm breaking it. It's because I know that I want them to call me back. I want to work with them again. I know the power of referral and recommendation. I believe in the power of
Mhm.
recommendation. So also knowing that even people that you take lightly, they might be your next breakthrough. They might be your destiny helper, if only you are consistent. And again, the beauty of consistency is that when you are being authentically yourself, this is where
Actually,
pretense doesn't lead to you like stumbling or dropping your bag. I don't know if you guys can hear or see me. Anyone in the chats? Anyone in the chats? Can somebody send in the chats if they can hear me or hear Sis Linda? Are you back?
yes, we lost each other completely there.
Oh, but it's perfect. Now I can hear you. As Sipo said, they can hear me. Can you guys hear Sis Linda?
We can hear you, Lesego. We can hear you. Asisipo can hear us.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. We
Yeah.
dipped. We dipped. Okay, our people can hear us.
Okay.
So
I can hear you. You're not also freezing anymore.
yeah, maybe we needed to dip and come back. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Tapelo can also hear us. Manusha can hear us. Okay, awesome. We
Yeah.
love and appreciate you so much. So we are nearing the end of our conversation, but really, I think I have gained so much in terms of understanding you a bit better, and I hope everyone else understands that everyone's journey is different
Very
because when you
different. Yeah.
approach and you want to do something, it is honestly about what you want to achieve, the problem you're solving for, and most essential, your purpose, in this life. So, Lesego, you and I were just touching on some of the things that we've enjoyed about the partnerships and some of the brands that we've worked with. What are those highlights that you can share with us that have really stood out for you? I know we've had a recent one. So it was also one for me because it was the first time we actually showed up differently for our young professionals. It was the first time where I was in that space, not as just, on the side as a spectator or as a plus one. So just seeing everything unfold was so beautiful. With our bestie brand, I'll call him that. Our bestie. So, like for you, what are those highlights? The good stuff around brands.
Yeah. Can I just note too, because I think these two kind of like redirected how I also position myself or like see myself or want to work with myself. When we did the AG event on the 9th Women's Day, I don't know whether it was just being in a space of women or like what the day was representing or how everybody was. That was really one of those events where even sometimes I'd go on my phone and I'm like, how was I a part of this? How you're just trying to figure out like how did I land up here? Because there was a sense of home being there. There was a sense of, I don't know if maybe because I haven't told my story like that, or maybe in that room or in that setting, things were, the combos were communicating, man. I don't know. The thing that room just made me feel home. And I really appreciated that so much, right? My second highlight is obviously very recent. Like last week, I was emceeing the Psycha Awards. And that opportunity, man, for me, I've never actually been to the Psycha Awards. When Trainee Trailblazer came out in 2022, I was still in my article year during my third year, and top 35. I didn't know it went as so far as like 2016, 15, 14, and all of that stuff because it was very exclusive event, and you come invitation only, and apparently every 10 years they open it up to the whole professional body or like professionals. And so to be a part of it, I also didn't
Mhm.
understand the weight of it. Like people kept saying, like, are you sure? Like, are you gonna be fine? But I think here's the beauty of also not buying into your own hype. You know,
Yeah.
I really just wanted to enjoy myself. I was so grateful that I got to experience that. And I feel like for me, highlights come when you do things because you just want to be part of the experience. Like, there's a lot of I want to say competition or wanting things because you're going to be seen, right? And we spoke about visibility. And I work so much on my values and knowing that visibility cannot drive my narrative. That when I'm afforded an opportunity, if I look at it through the eyes of visibility, I was going to fumble on that stage, because there's so many people watching the awards.
The
I didn't
whole
even know
time.
whole time. I found out 5 minutes before I went on stage that it was being live recorded on LinkedIn. I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, why did you tell me? I was fine, not knowing. I just thought I'm talking to the people in front, you know, up until I read that line and it said members of the media. I'm like, who's the media? The media here. But I guess it's at like doing things because you love to and you want to be part of the
Mhm.
experience, and you're very grateful for the opportunity. So it was a highlight in that, not because it was big, but it's because of the what it represented for other people. Like I think a lot of
Yeah.
people were saying how they could relate because of how authentic I was and how comfortable I was on stage, how graceful I was on stage. And if I'm honest, that's my posture even in real life. So I just knew what you do in real life is what you must do on stage. Don't now mess up the bag and then now start doing things that you're not comfortable doing on stage, right? So that's
Yeah.
what made it a highlight. The fact that I got to be myself and it was well received because I was myself. Same thing with the AG event where it's like I was just myself with a whole lot of beautiful women in the room, and it was just a powerhouse and just being part of experiences. And I think if more young people um, spent a lot of time in gratitude, spent a lot of time knowing that it's one thing to build a career and want to climb the corporate ladder and want to do certain things, but there's beauty in appreciating where you are, the people you know, the opportunities that you get, the things that you do, even if they're not publicized. There is beauty in that because when that call comes and Saika's like, MC, I'm like, I'm ready, because I know I'm going to prepare that much. I'm going to be Lesego, I'm here, So I think it's just sitting in that gratitude and knowing that opportunities will come when they are meant to come. And even when they come, grab them with both hands. Like don't don't overthink it. Don't pressure yourself to be something that you're not. When people approach you, they approach you because they like you. That's what they sold when they looked at you. So there's no way I could have been somebody else. I just had to be Lesego.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for highlighting the wonderful day that you had on the 9th of August.
No, I don't want to license it. It was a
Beautiful.
highlight. And I think it was also because it was my birthday month. I think August for me is such a sentimental month. Everything that happens in August, I look at it with double appreciation. And I think it's because it really highlights a year ago, I was not working with different firms. I was not working with brands. I was just literally an audit manager. And then I was working for the UK and I was just minding my business and drinking water and like doing YouTube. A year later, I am at the Auditor General. I am doing speaking engagements. I am emceeing. Like for me, like it was like mind boggling. I'm just kind of like, your life can actually change in a space of a year.
So on that, life changing drastically from, baking in your own kitchen to now owning a supermarket vibe.
The whole supermarket. Maybe
A
a
whole
kitchen.
supermarket now. You touched on ego, give us some advice on just, remaining real as we wrap up, throw in some of the things, even if it's tools that have worked for you or that you've seen working for other people. It's easy
Mm,
for us to off ramp. It's easy for us to fall into the trap of, you know what, I've made it, or I'm popular, or now I've gone up the ranks, and that's where our partnerships, brand partnerships, collaborations with other specialists or people that are seasoned get affected. As young
mm.
people, what can we do to just make sure, that we remain? I know you've touched on a few, but just as we wrap up, those key nuggets that everyone can take away.
Yeah, my first one is definitely your friendship circle. If there's one group of people that humble me are my friends, right? I get my friends laughing at me. They're like, Lesego. I had this other friend that actually bought me my first mic when I was doing YouTube, and she's laughing at me. Sometimes she's like, I thought you were playing when you were doing these things. I didn't think you were actually taking them seriously. And my friends keep me so humble, like they keep me normal. And again, you can't believe in your own hype, you know? That's why it's like who you are around matters, Like if maybe all my friends or some of my friends did social media or they were active with brands, maybe I'd have a head about it or I'd feel some type of way about it. But my closest friends, my circle of friends, the ones that I confide in, they're not in this space. So it's easier for me to be objective when I approach them, when I talk to them, and I keep myself humble. They don't see me as Lesego Rankou with a lot of followers on LinkedIn. They just see me as Lesego, their friend who's doing stuff on social media. And it's like, why are you doing these things? With
Yeah.
humor, right? So that's why I'm just saying your circle of friends is going to humble you. Also checking yourself, right? A lot of people don't like to introspect, and we mentioned this before, but introspection is actually key to a lot of things, a lot of problems. I spend a lot of time praying, asking God, humble me. Like, I never want to believe in my own hype. Like, if people compliment me and say whatever, it's amazing, it's great, but I know that glory is not coming to me by myself. Like, I know if God was not the one sitting on me or guiding me, I can't just say, yeah, I'm such a brilliant person. It's checking
Mm.
yourself and saying, what do I tell myself when I'm by myself? When I leave platforms or collaborations and I come home, some of my family members, they don't even know half of the things that I'm doing, so it's very easy to like come
We
back
don't
to earth.
see
Like,
it.
it's kind of like, hey, where are you coming from? Like, why are you always dressed up? you know? So it's those kind of people that you need to have in your life and those types of conversations. And also the people that you look up to also inform how you behave as a person. So I know I look up to a lot of people that really don't, again, believe in their own hype. They're very humble, keep to themselves, they do what they do, and then they are normal people outside what they do. So those people influence how I think about myself and how I view myself and how I show up. So I think it's very important that the people you follow should mirror the person that you'd like to be. The people that you network with should be able to keep you in check. Some people may need accountability partners, right? I don't think I've gotten to that point where I need somebody to like hold me accountable and say, okay, I think you're doing a bit too much. I'm not there yet. I think luckily my friends are doing it. But if ever you feel like your pride and your ego are nagging at you a little bit, find somebody that you know is going to be honest with you and allow them to check you when those moments come and like do like a quarterly review, a monthly review of where am I, what have I done, where is my mind at, where's my heart at, um, where are my views at, because like I said, social media informs a lot of what we do. So sometimes you might get lost in the source, it's a possibility. But there's always moments to come back and say, actually, I can rewrite this narrative. I don't need to maintain this posture. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm sorry. I think a lot of people really struggle to have accountability when they've kind of stepped off or they've believed their hype. So again, just to humble yourself and just say, I'm sorry, you know what, that kind of came out wrong, or that kind of rubbed people off the wrong way. But we move, we learn, we just human, we normal, it happens.
And we keep
And we
on evolving, which is so critical. I think on my side, my prayers always, even when I'm hurt or things don't go right or I'm in doubt, I always say, God, don't change my heart.
Mm,
Just help me keep real in what you have called me to do, because I think I put my heart out into everything. So if my heart is not in it, I won't do it. I'm just that person. So
true.
someone has just asked me, Lesego, as we're wrapping up, they've squeezed in a question on risk, like how do you protect yourself using different platforms to position yourself and working with brands, because being out there is not always so safe. So they're just asking on some of the risks, how are you managing some of the risks that come with, building these meaningful partnerships and brands, and just yourself as a professional on the different mediums.
I'm gonna answer it in a very practical way, and also in the terms of like brands and stuff like that. So, safety wise, for example, I never post where I'm at any given time. I always post my content or brand things after the fact, right? And I think that's more of a safety situation, and I think just where we live, I don't know, sometimes I just get a little bit in my head that, you know what, at the end of the day, not everybody has genuine intentions about you and what you are. So you need to always keep yourself safe. So whenever I work with brands or collaborate, or I'm doing a photo shoot somewhere, I always post after the fact. The second thing is that theme of consistency matters. Who you see on LinkedIn is Lesotho the professional, but it's not so far different from who you see on Instagram, Lesotho, the one that's showing her highlights. There's a consistency there. If you go to my YouTube, you see the Lesotho that's preaching about God. Okay, when you look at the whole story, the narrative makes sense, right? The danger that people find themselves doing is on TikTok, you want to be someone. On LinkedIn, you want to be someone. On Instagram, you want to be someone. On Facebook, you want to be someone, right? And that exposes you to quite a lot without you realizing. And I always tell people, I think 2 weeks ago, somebody was challenging me, asking me, like, LinkedIn has changed. It's no longer about finding jobs. Like, people are just posting the weirdest thing. Like, somebody posted that they were getting married on LinkedIn, or like they were running on LinkedIn. Why? It's also about having an understanding of what each platform is trying to achieve. I know that when I was doing my lessons of the week, I was trying to encourage young professionals on this platform and build them and understand LinkedIn as a professional platform is a good place to network. So when I post something, that thing must be the guiding principle of why I post, right? If I want to post a highlight of me really at the Cycle Awards looking really great, all that content, you can find it on Instagram. You can
Yeah.
find me looking pretty, whatever the case may be. On YouTube, you can find my videos of me dancing or whatever the case may be. But there must be like a consistency to avoid that level of risk that people expose themselves without realizing. And I really think as a young person, it's okay to clean up shop. If you look at your social medias now and they're not making sense, clean it up, you know, because at
Yeah,
the end of the day, our employers are looking at us, they are looking
the whole
at our
time.
they are looking at our Instagrams. They are looking everywhere. And it's not even intrusive. I think it's just people want authentic people. They don't want you to deceive them or pretend to be someone that you're not. And I want to say, fortunately and unfortunately, we expose ourselves on social media. We are ourselves on social media. So if anyone really wants to know you, I'm gonna go on your Instagram and check what's going
First,
on. I'm
yeah,
gonna
what
go
are
on
you up to?
what type of person are you? And that's
Sure.
just how people communicate. So in in high level slash very simple terms, consistency,
Yeah.
and also stay away from over posting. Post only when you need to, or collaborate with people only when you need to, not just because it's there. Yeah.
I love this comment, Lesego, saying, thank you for the podcast, insightful. The people you mirror influence one's outlook in life. I love that
100%.
so much. Yolanda saying we keep evolving, and that's important, especially because we are still, quite young. We are all doing this for the first time. I think I
Yeah.
love saying that to people, especially young people, in there's so much doubt and uncertainty, to say, listen, even our parents, they only now 50. They're doing
Mhm.
50 for the first time. So imagine all of us are only at this point right now. We haven't done this before. So we are going to make mistakes, but don't make the worst mistakes. That's why we are sharing what we know, what we think works from the experiences we've had, and also learning from you to say, hey, maybe this whole you are not as consistent as you say, and you share those things, but it's always from a point of growth, and that's why we have these platforms that we have. That's why Liseho's got his. That's why I'm also pushing this side. That's why we know so many other young people within the auditing and accounting profession, within the creative space, within the people development space, because all of us at the end of the day, in order to succeed, we need each other. We just need to work together and partnership in meaningful partnerships. Any parting words, Lisiho? I'm just loving the consistency now of our connection. I know we ran out of time a long time.
And the devil is a liar. I think for me, parting words is I'm so passionate about young people, and sometimes you just have a knack, And I feel like when you are a young person and you look up to certain people, there's a certain level of vulnerability that young people have. And I think it's important to tell an accurate story. It doesn't have to be a perfect story, but an accurate story. Like for me, I have been going through a lot of career changes. I've been doing a lot of things very boldly, trying to show people that, you know what, sometimes you may achieve the CSA designation and do certain things and have a certain viewpoint of how you thought your career would be. But I decided to step into a season where I leaned into my passions, right? And there's no timeline that I'm holding myself to. And what I sense from young professionals specifically is everybody is on a time clock. Somebody, we chasing something, a destination, and we all trying to outcompete each other. We all trying to like make it somewhere at a certain pace. I don't know who determined the pace. I have yet to find out. But I think I just want to encourage young people to live their own story, like live their own journey and live it accurately for themselves. It must be true to you. You must be able to sleep and be content and find peace, right? There should be no point in time or no place where you are so in conflict because of environment or circumstance or being on this time clock that somebody set, but you had no view or opinion on who said it. So I really think I'm writing a story authentically myself. Next year I'll be doing other things. I'm knee deep into the educational space, and people are like, how are you going to do it? I'm like, I've yet to find out. All I know is that my heart is here and I'm going to make it work. That's all I know. So that's the boldness that you must have about your passions, about what you like to do, what you are feeling called to do. So stick to your calling and don't let circumstances, people, existing narratives feed into your narrative.
Oh, I love you so much. I wish I could just bottle that and like keep it on, that
Yeah.
replay in the young people's minds. I was telling you earlier, I was at Voice of Wits, Vow FM, and we were talking
Yeah.
about gap year, making career choices and just life choices in the right
Mhm.
direction. Obviously, I'll always push for the profession. I'm hoping for an honorary CASA one day in my life. But some people are not for that line, it's not your journey, but you might find that you have the intellect for it.
Mhm.
So sometimes you just need to take a step back and have that year of thriving, and not just like a gap year where people feel like it's wasted and you're not going to achieve anything. Be
Yeah.
intentional about your choices. So
Mm.
just on that, you're saying, own it and have your own appreciate your own journey. So I was just
Mm.
sharing that with them to say, as you're building, someone else, looking at someone else is not going to help you. Looking
It's
at
really
things
not.
from a negative perspective is not going to help. Don't rush.
Mm.
Sometimes the best decisions are made slower than those that we just rush at and end up failing ourselves, firstly.
I
And you were
agree.
asking, where does this time thing come from? My response was, it's a societal norm that has been created because of us looking, at the side mirror and
Yep.
watching other people instead of moving ahead.
Yep.
Thank you, Meranku, for your time. I appreciate you
Ah,
for taking
love
this
this.
opportunity. So, to
Thank
everyone that joined us, Punam, Kagiso, Yolanda, Tapelo was so loyal and commenting as well to keep us real on the connection. I appreciate you. Much love. I don't know how to pronounce. Oh, Michael, I would like to learn how to pronounce your name. So thank you, Michael.
Munyarat.
Eh?
Munyarat. That's my friend.
Is it?
That's my
Muneraz. Thank you so much, Soma. Manusha. Tariria, I think. Asisipo, thank you so much. We are all heading to greatness. So may you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend ahead, and enjoy the rest during December. If you don't see us again, we will catch up with our Thursday dates in January. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Sis Linda.